It's time. Assaulting the narrative. Destroying the lie. Unearthing the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
Live from West Palm Beach, Florida. Heard coast to coast and all around the world. High Noon with John Gordon.
All right, Fani Willis made a spectacle of herself. This is PG radio. I'm biting my tongue. I'm imposing self-discipline, a quality that I think should be universally regarded, well regarded. It's difficult. It's tough. I don't like her. I've been vocal for over a year that this lady is evil, that she's not following the law, that she is, her lawsuit is a pack of lies. It is a house of cards. Lord, please hear our prayer. She went to church. Why can't I pray on the radio? Dear Lord, hear our prayer. You say that vengeance is yours. I defer to you, Lord. Amen. She went to court today, or this week, day before yesterday. She came in hot. Clip one. This is Fani Willis in the Fulton Superior Court.
I would ask, I need 3 documents in front of me, and they're the 3 filings of Ms. Merchant. 3 filings? Does anyone have the 3 filings of Ms. Merchant? Does the court have the 3 filings of Ms. Merchant?
When you say the filings, you mean like the pleadings?
The pleadings, yes, Your Honor.
Okay. I think we could locate those for you in the supplemental.
I want the one filed on January the 8th, the one filed immediately after we filed ours, and the final one.
She acts like this is her courtroom, and the judge just sits there and lets her get away with it. She had the 3 filings. She had the legal filings that Ashley Merchant had filed. She acknowledged that in court when she repeatedly referred to them as lies. And her attitude, I've never seen anyone act as arrogantly and display the hubris that she displayed in this courtroom. Listen to this.
Isn't it true that you met Mr. Wade October 2019 at a judges conference?
We haven't gotten to the point where Ms. Willis should be treated hostile in this.
I think we have.
I very much want to be here, so I'm not a hostile witness. I very much want to be here.
Not so much that you're hostile, Ms. Willis, it'd be an adverse witness. Your interests are opposed to Ms. Merchant.
Ms. Merchant's interests are contrary to democracy, Your Honor, not to mine.
Contrary to democracy. Really? Fani Willis is prosecuting 19 honorable people because they tried to intervene in stopping what I believe and most Americans believe was a stolen 2020 election. She is coordinating with the Biden White House. We know that her lover now, Nathan Wade, went to the White House, met with the White House counsel's office. We know that because he reported it on his expense report that he got reimbursed on from Fulton County, Georgia. So I felt like Fani Willis was hostile throughout the entire proceeding, but in a legal sense, she was not a hostile witness, just an arrogant and hateful witness, in my view. And this was on display as we have here in Cut 3.
Please give me the time period.
Mr. Wade visited you at the place you laid your head.
When?
Has he ever visited you at the place you laid your head?
So let's be clear, because you lied in this. Let me tell you which one you lied in. Right here. I think you lied right here. No. This is the truth,
Judge.
And it is a lie.
So that was Fani Willis at her most proud moment, I'm sure. So here are the cast of characters. First of all, you have Fani Willis. She is the district attorney of Fulton County, Georgia. She came up through the ranks of the district attorney's office. She replaced a corrupt Paul Howard in 2020 when she was elected. Then you have Nathan Wade. Now, Nathan Wade is her admitted lover. They don't deny that they had a love affair while he was working for her We'll talk in a minute about the timing of that. When did they become lovers? Then you have Ms. Ashley Merchant. She is the lawyer for Michael Roman, who is one of the defendants in the Fani Willis 19 political persecution trial. That's my term. I'll own it gladly. And then you have Terrence Bradley. Now, Mr. Bradley is an attorney who was in practice with Nathan Wade, and that becomes important in just a moment. And then there's the judge, Scott McAfee. Now, let's look at Judge McAfee for just a moment. He was appointed to the bench by Brian Kemp on February the 1st, 2023. That was just barely over a year ago. Now, Judge McAfee really, I think Judge McAfee, frankly, on the face of matters, looks like a pretty decent guy to me from what I can tell. He grew up in Kennesaw, Georgia. He is an Emory undergrad. He was an Eagle Scout. In 2013, he graduated from the University of Georgia Law School, cum laude. He was subsequently appointed or worked in the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. Now, here's where it gets interesting, ladies and gentlemen. From 2015 to 2019, he worked for the Fulton County District Attorney. And who was his immediate supervisor? Ms. Fani Willis. Now it's starting to look a little bit murky to me. And he was appointed by, as I said, Brian Kemp to be a Superior Court judge. More murkiness. Okay, so I'm giving the judge the benefit of the doubt. He's patient, he's thoughtful, and he seems to be fair so far. But I am concerned. When Ms. Willis had her little tizzy there, her little outburst, and she was about to hang herself, literally she was going to undo herself when she lost her temper that we just played. If you're watching on YouTube Live, you saw the clip. If otherwise, you heard the audio. The thing that I did not really appreciate or like is that Judge McAfee jumped in and saved her. He called a timeout. He said, we're going to take 5. And when Ms. Willis came back into court, I would say that she was still defiant. She still filibustered. She still displayed a certain level of arrogance. And I thought that this was a classic case of that right here. We'll play clip 4 for you.
So your office objected to us getting Delta records for flights that you may have taken with Mr. Wade.
And, well, no, look. I object to you getting records. You've been intrusive into people's personal lives. You're confused. You think I'm on trial. These people are on trial for trying to steal an election in 2020. I'm not on trial, no matter how hard you try to put me on trial.
So that's the defiant part. And then I think this next cut gets to the crux of the matter. Let's listen to that now.
Ma'am, let me be very specific. Did you talk with Ms. Willis about her romantic relationship with Mr. Wade?
Yes.
Did Ms. Willis tell you on more than one occasion that she was engaged in a romantic relationship with Mr. Wade prior to you leaving the district attorney's office?
Did she tell me or did I observe?
I'm straight right now with the tell me.
Yes.
Did she tell you that in the year of 2020?
Yes.
In the year of 2021?
Yes.
So there is the entire case about Fani Willis. As she said, she's not on trial, but her credibility and her ability to continue prosecuting this case is very much under the microscope. So Ms. Willis and Mr. Wade both maintain that they were not in a romantic relationship prior to his signing a contract with Ms. Willis's office in Fulton County, which paid him over $650,000 in just a little, almost 2 years. It's a lot of money. Now, the allegations are that he took that money and rewarded Ms. Willis and it benefited her by taking her on elaborate trips to Napa Valley, to Aruba, to Belize, to Miami. And Ms. Willis's defense for that is, well, I reimbursed him. I paid him for half of my trips. Did she use her credit card or give a check to pay for any of the trips? One airline ticket. The rest, she maintains that she reimbursed him out of her stash of cash, which she maintains that she keeps in her house or wherever she is living. Okay, so the legal, real fine line legal question is, when did this affair begin? Ms. Willis and Mr. Wade are adamant that it began after he went to work for his office. Therefore, he could not have been coerced or bribed or incentivized to join the prosecution team. And that so it must be okay if they became lovers after that. But as you just heard, Ms. Robin Unearthy, Ms. Willis's bestie, they had a 30-year friendship, and Ms. Willis even hired her to work in the Fulton DA's office. Talk about a cesspool. I mean, you're going to go out and you're going to hire your best friend, then you're going to hire your lover, then you're going to go on trips. The insinuation is that Fulton County taxpayer dollars funded those trips with money that Ms. Willis paid Mr. Wade. It's just one giant, big mess. But now Ms. Unearthy and Ms. Willis, they're not besties anymore. They haven't even talked in over a year because Ms. Unearthy chose to tell the truth. She said, oh, yeah, they were romantic way back into 2020. Well, how do you know that? Well, because Ms. Willis told me so. And I observed them kissing and hugging and embracing and holding hands, just like people that you're in love with would do. So that would tend to indicate that this romantic relationship did exist before Mr. Wade went on the Fulton County payroll. And according to Ms. Willis, according to her own sworn testimony, and I quote, "The testimony of one witness is enough to prove a fact." Now, Ms. Willis asserted that when she was being asked about what evidence or proof do you have that you reimbursed Mr. Wade for the expenses of those trips you went on. And she said, well, my word is good enough. The testimony of one witness is enough to prove a fact. Well, Ms. Unearthy says that this relationship began way before 2022 when Wade went on the payroll of Fulton County. So the question now is, what will this judge do? And I've been consulting people that I know that have experience in the legal profession. You know, I've been a member of the Georgia Bar for 40 years. So I have I have a few friends that know. And the word that I think what this is going to boil down to is, regardless of whose side you want to believe, when did the relationship start? When did it end? Was it, did Ms. Willis pay her own way or not? It does not require, this judge does not have to make a finding of fact on any of that stuff. The test, ladies and gentlemen, is whether there is an appearance of impropriety. Now, you go find me one living American with a brain, 2 eyes, and 2 ears who has watched this proceeding on Thursday to come back and tell me there is not an appearance of impropriety Baloney, baloney, baloney. This judge has no choice but to remove Ms. Willis and her entire office from this case. Will he have the guts to follow the law and to do what the law and the canons of ethics? There's law and there's ethics. And the Georgia Bar Association determines the ethics that lawyers must abide by. And every lawyer in Georgia, probably in the country, knows that as a lawyer, you must avoid an appearance of impropriety in cases that you are involved with. No freaking chance that this judge has any choice, in my opinion, but to remove Ms. Willis and her entire office. This case is over. Now, ask me whether I think he will. I don't know. I want to give the judge the benefit of the doubt. An Eagle Scout, thoughtful, well-educated, graduated from Georgia Law School cum laude, and he is very experienced. Now, where do my seeds of doubt arise? He was appointed by Kemp. Kemp and Trump have an openly hostile relationship with one another. Kemp does not like Trump. Trump does not like Kemp. Trump feels that Kemp was disloyal to him in the 2020 election. And so whose loyalty? I mean, look, judges are human, okay? If you don't think that judges are human and that they bring their own biases into the courtroom, you must wake up. If you don't believe it, look at Judge Ignoramus in New York. We'll get to that in a second. But will this judge be able to view this case impartially without an allegiance to the guy who appointed him? The judge is an Eagle Scout. I'm putting my faith in him. He also knows Ms. Willis. He worked in the district attorney's office with her, for 4 years. So will that bias his opinion? I don't know. I saw him jump to her defense when she was about to lose her composure, and he called a timeout. But he did reprimand her in court twice when she was filibustering so badly that I would have felt that he could have. And he said, you do it one more time, I'll have no choice but to strike your testimony. So he's given the right indications while on camera, in court. Will he do the right thing? He's going to decide next week. Stay tuned. I'm going to predict, and I think it's a close call, but I'm going to predict that he throws Ms. Willis and her team out, that they can no longer be advocates in this case. That's my prediction. All right, Joe Biden, he is being investigated. He is being looked at for impeachment by the United States Congress. They have a committee, as you know. He is suspected of having used government money to unduly influence an investigator in the Ukraine who was investigating Burisma and improprieties by this energy company that Hunter Biden was a director of, that he received over $1 million in director's fees from this Ukrainian company. Joe Biden is also being investigated for allegedly taking $20 to $60 million in bribes, hush money, whatever you want to call it, under the table through 20 of his LLCs, and then redistributing it to his family using Hunter Biden as his surrogate. He's on the record as having said, I don't know anything about Hunter's business dealings. Never engaged with him, never had any meetings with any of the people that were paying him money. That's proven to be a lie. Not only did he meet with them, he met with them with business prospects numerous times as vice president and afterwards. Well, Jim Biden is going to be called up by the impeachment committee next, and then later this month, Hunter Biden. It's not looking good for Joe Biden, but as I said, that Durr report, or her report rather, was a smokescreen. That's to take your eye off the real ball. The real issue is Joe Biden's dishonesty, and I think his treasonous behavior as president of the United States, taking money from our adversaries and then making overt decisions that favor them. All right, last little snippet here. Donald J. Trump was dealt a devastating blow this week by Judge Ignoramus in New York. This judge, Ingron, actually, I just call him Ignoramus. I don't like him. I don't trust him. I think he's bad. He thinks Donald Trump is bad. I think Ignoramus is worse. Okay? There you have it. He popped Donald Trump with a $355 million fine. Declared that he could not work in his own company in New York for 3 years, that his sons, Eric and Don Jr., can't work there for 2 years, and they cannot borrow money from a New York bank for 3 years. I've been a lawyer since 1979. I've been a political scientist and a political junkie since I was 10 years old. I've never in my life seen anything like this, ladies and gentlemen. This is the material of a banana republic. And if you think this is bad, wait until we talk to Tim Rivers, who's in the green room. He's written books about it. And we're going to get to that in just a moment. But God, please help save this country. Donald Trump is under assault from so many directions. I don't know how he handles it. And now the price he's having to pay for serving our country as one of the finest presidents ever, certainly in my lifetime, he's having to ostensibly pay $355 million. Well, you know, there is a good chance he'll never have to pay a penny. But in order to go file an appeal, he's got to put up a bond that he can pay that money if he loses on appeal. That's not chicken feed. And he's going to have to pay lawyers. And of course, the real purpose of this is to keep him off the campaign trail. But the American people are not stupid. They see through it. They see that all of this is one big political persecution. Donald Trump calls it a witch hunt. I think that's much too kind. But he is so smart. He knows how to frame it. He knows how to put it in a way that the American people can hear it. And it's two words. It's a witch hunt. I think it's a political persecution. It's not about Donald Trump, though. It's not about Donald Trump. It's about you, and it's about me, and it's about people who want to be able to go to church and worship God and be conservative and espouse conservative values, to live a Christian life, to believe in the Bible. That's what this is about. They want to make it about Donald Trump and his personality. Okay? Well, if you think that his personality warrants all of this, then please, I think you need to pray. This is the worst treatment I've ever seen of any human being that has walked this earth. And it is happening in the United States of America. You've got to rise up. You have got to take a stand. You have got to call talk radio. You can do that right now, 804-778-8888. You've got to write a letter to the editor of your local paper. You have got to tell your preacher. You've got to tell your fellow parishioners. You've got to tell your friends and relatives and neighbors that we have got to stand up against this evil and push back. We push back by we're going to go to the polls in in less than a year, and you're going to have an opportunity to voice your opinion, cast your vote. All right. Well, Tim Rivers, he is an author. He is the founder of J6 Patriot News, and he is an author. He has written Letters from Prison and The Art of Confinement. Tim Rivers, welcome to The Truth with John Gordon.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's you were just talking about the lawfare that everybody's like watching happen in front of us, a tyranny of law, a misuse of it, a misinterpretation of it, a misreading of it. It's crazy. But I want to ask everybody, let's just for a minute, you know how the doctor checks your right eye and left eye? If you were to cover up one eye and forget about January 6th and forget about what they've done to Donald Trump and Navarro and Stone and everybody else, and look at what's happening in America, would you be in the street? I guess that's a question we need to ask. And if we can answer, well, heck yeah, then we can understand how much our free speech and how much our freedoms have been chilled by all of this.
Unquestionably. And the January 6th committee was not, I think the defense, frankly, for people on the January that have been targeted for January 6th, and people like Peter Navarro, who you mentioned, and oh gosh, I'm having a moment. Steve Bannon, thank you very much. The defense is that they did not appear before Congress before a illegitimately committee that was not legitimately formed. Nancy Pelosi put the people on the committee that she did not follow the minority leaders' appointments from the Republicans. And so you got people like Liz Cheney on the committee. And my gosh, the whole thing is so crooked. And they hired a producer from ABC News to produce primetime committee hearings. And, you know, I want to ask you this, Tim. I love Jim Jordan. I love Jamie Comer. I love Senator Kennedy. But I am getting a little tired of the rhetoric, and I'm ready for them to do something. Why have we not called Ray Epps before Congress and put him in the seat and had him bring his bank records with him and show us how did he live? Who was he getting paid by when he was in the streets of Washington on January the 6th, 2021? I mean, do you feel
everybody's been looking at a broken puzzle, John. It's a busted piece. You're seeing a little chunk of the left corner, a piece of the middle, an edge over here, a piece over there, and that's all you've been shown. And for almost 3 years now, we've been trying to get the truth beyond this stupid wall that media has built that is so effectively shutting off half of America's viewpoints. And that's why we did the books. We've been writing letters to these prisoners, hostages we're calling them now, because prisoners actually have rights, and these people have been denied their rights, some for over 3 years. When you get these letters back and you start hearing their version of what happened that day, their version of why they went, their version of what they experienced, it just doesn't match. And, you know, even the live interviews that we do from jail, you hear these guys tell you about the takedowns in their home, dragging babies and children into the yard under lasers. I mean, it's Stasi. It's something that nobody would ever expect in America.
This is the work of a communist regime. This does not happen in a true democracy. But I got to tell you, Tim, I just don't believe, and it's not what I want to believe, but none of these people are governing for us.
No.
I have a seasoned, respectable Washington journalist who has lived in that swamp for many decades tell me that they think every member of Congress is somehow compromised or has dirty laundry that is being held over their head, and they are being prevented from doing what the American people want them to do. And they are working for the special interest, for the establishment, the shadow government. I don't know who it is. All of the above. What is it? What's your theory?
How do you start with a salary of like $120,000 and 4 years later emerge a multimillionaire? Let's just ask these questions. Follow the money. It's about money. We've allowed lobbyists, we've allowed corporations to become people and act as if they have a right in the say of what happens to people. We've got lobbyists who buy congressmen and senators right and left. We've got crooked people who create fantasies in order to destroy their political opponents. Washington has become an absolute dumpster fire. And okay, so here, how do you fix it? Okay, can you read that? That's your Congress switchboard. Write it down, 202-224-3121. That's how you fix it. You call your congressman every single day. I love calling the editor. I love calling in to radio stations, but they can't change it. These guys can. And if you make their lives miserable every day and call them and tell them, why are you not doing the job that I hired you to do? Because we are the employers and they are the employees, and we need to remember that.
Well, and they are human beings. And if all they hear from are lobbyists and people representing special interests, then that's just the squeaky wheel that they're going to respond to. So very pragmatically, you offer a great solution. Call your congressman, call your representatives, call your senators, as well as your school board and your state representatives. Ronald Reagan said, freedom is not free. If 2020 did anything for us, it was a wake-up call to remind us of that sage advice.
So how do you stop this? Okay, well, I gave you one easy way that, this is a big battlefield, folks, and I'm just standing on a very small piece of it when I fight for J6 prisoners and hostages and get their letters out to America, which you can read for free at j6patriotnews.com. Please go out there, read their messages because they're written for you. And then we coagulated them into a book that tells their stories over years. Book One, Letters from Prison, covers the first year of their incarceration and the horrors of DC Gulag and how they were treated in the Department of Corrections there. And year two shows you how they're surviving through their letters, through the trials, through the unlawful and unwarranted sentences and abuse, while people who are really doing destructive harm run free in the streets. These letters are very important. All the proceeds from this book go to support these men and women and their families, because the collateral damage that's been done to their families and their lives is nothing compared to what you've done to them. It is horrendous. Young children with PTSD, mothers who are being thrown out of their homes, families without food to feed when unable to keep their car payments up. It is a pogrom on conservatives that goes beyond the J6 prisoners. And just like John said, ladies and gentlemen, you know what all these guys tell you in their letters over and over again that you need to read? You are next.
We got 1,000 people interacting with us on Getter right now. You can go to getter.com, hit the live button, and look for The Truth with John Gordon, and you can join us live there. You can also watch us on YouTube Live and, of course, across the John Fredericks Radio Network. We're talking to Tim Rivers. He's an author. He's an activist. Tell us the worst story that you've heard from January the 6th. Who is currently a political prisoner, and what is the impact to them and their families?
It is the individual who brought me into this fight in the first place. I was working in election integrity like so many people after the election.
Like me.
And I bumped into these people who were supporting guys who had gotten snapped up by the FBI, and it was really happening fast in these early days. And I wrote one of these individuals a letter through the Patriot Mail Project. And the 4-page letter I got back from him destroyed me, destroyed my faith in justice in this country. I'm a retired IT executive and engineer. I've worked with the federal sector and with special forces through many of my years there. I have an ultimate respect for this guy. He's a 22-year retired Ranger and Green Beret and special forces instructor who's been working for the State Department as contractor for 10 years doing special protection in all the places that you and I never want to set foot in. He's never been arrested in his life, has 2 beautiful children. There's a great family man, a Christian. And he is sitting in a Dallas-Fort Worth prison right now for over 3 years, almost 3 years. In March, it will be 3 years without trial. This is an American hero with 3 Bronze Stars. And that's what brought me into this fight. That is a horror story. It's destroyed his life. He's lost his home. He's lost his goods. His wife has left him. His children are basically scattered to the winds. He's lost everything he's ever earned in his life. They want to strip his military honors. They want to strip his ability to be a human being and basically pronounce civic death for being there that day. He didn't even go into the building, folks. He just protected people who were being hurt. And this is the travesty that I hear over and over again. You'll read his letters in my first book. I actually let you read the first 14 pages of book 1, just so you get a flavor of what's in these books, how important it is, how historical these letters are. You can go to lettersfromprison.us and read that. You got a little teaser in there, 14 pages. You can read Jeff's letter in there, Jeff McKellar. And if that doesn't set your heart on fire, if that doesn't make you so angry, the thing that turned me into, my handle out here is Furious Tim. I don't know what will, but maybe you can find a picture of your children or your grandchildren and gaze into that and rehearse your speech as you tell them why you allowed them to be fitted for shackles.
Well, God love you and God bless you for what you're doing. Thank you for picking up the fight, and thank you for taking time away from your family and your business and your life to work for all of us to preserve our republic. I mean, you know, I guess maybe, well, actually, I think I am wired like most people, but I don't think we're wired like Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, Adam Kinzinger, the representative from New York, what's his name? Rankin, and don't
so much
they
hate,
care
so much
about,
evil.
Don't they care about our country? Don't they want their children and their grandchildren to be able to live in a free country? But it seems like they're singularly interested in a uniparty rule and their own greed for power. Isn't that what this is all about?
This is good versus evil. I hate to put it so binary, but that's exactly what it is. If you're like me, if you've been raised in the America, the 50s and 60s and 70s, if you've worked with incredible people in law enforcement and military, if you've ever had the pleasure of serving this country, then you understand what it means to be an American. I don't think these people understand, or they have forgotten and do not remember. And so I do put this binary. It is good versus evil. That's why I showed you that phone number. I'll show it to you again. Really easy, 202-224-3121. You can fight evil, but you have to speak up. If you don't, then evil goes on about its business. And I do believe that's what's happening to this country, is that we've gotten lazy and apathetic as individuals. We've enjoyed the rewards and the fruits of freedom so much that we've forgotten the price that has to be paid for it. As you said, I sign all my books. Freedom is never free. And it's not free now, folks. And if you don't get off your butt, there won't be anything to save.
I think it's later than we think. I honestly believe it's later than we think. When you look at what's happening at the southern border, we know that China has expressed an intention to dominate the world by 2048. And here we are in 2024, and they're flooding military-age men that are fit by the hundreds, maybe thousands across our southern border. They're entering our country, and they're going to places unknown, parts unknown. And I fear that there is going to be an invasion and that their army is already going to be here. And they're floating spy balloons over our country. They're building a spy station in Cuba. They're building a military base in the Bahamas. And now you've got Joe Biden, who's taken at least $3 million that nobody even denies that he's taken from entities tied to the CCP.
I think you have to educate yourself, really, John. You're so right in all these things, but America is not educating themselves on these things.
That's because they're not watching like The Truth with John Gordon. We got a few 100,000, but we need millions of people tuning in on this show and all of conservative radio networks. And, you know, this idea, this notion of MAGA, they're MAGA extremists. I want to know what the definition of a MAGA extremist is. Someone who believes in God, somebody who has read and tries to follow the teachings of God, someone who knows the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights and wants to uphold every single element of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. People who, number one, support the First Amendment to free speech. But Tim, you are 100% correct. If you don't think when I take this microphone every Saturday that I don't stop and think about what are the implications for me going on the airwaves and telling people what I honestly, truthfully believe based on tens of hours of research every week. I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. The first thing I do is I start researching for this Saturday show. And part of it is just my quest for knowledge, and my love of the country. But it's also to do my listeners justice when I come on and occupy this airtime for an hour every week, which I consider a very large responsibility. I want to tell the truth, but what's the penalty for that?
There is a penalty, trust me. I mean, so many people in my community of supporters for J6 are paying that penalty. FBI knocking on their doors and threatening them for testifying in court, saying, you know, we might have to charge you if you show up to talk about your buddy here. I mean, it's really a horror show, and it's spreading. I think people like you and I who are not afraid to speak the truth, who actually try to kick in doors to bring the truth to people, will be targeted next. They've already got some guy who's going to be tried for basically saying it's just like Pelosi got that guy thrown in jail for repeating a meme that somebody had posted out on Facebook. Now Biden and the DOJ are going after somebody for basically making some statements that they claim were incorrect about Biden. It's just gone way too far. And again, I come back to that. We need to remember that freedom isn't free. There's a cost for it. January 6th is a cost. Sacrifice is often unavoidable, but necessary. And these men and women understand that. If you read their letters, they tell you, I don't know why God sent me here, but I'm here and I'll do his will. You got no idea what it's like to be jailed for 3 years without trial, without contact with their family, and still have this faith. Still sing your national anthem at 9 o'clock at night. Still take a knee and pray. You have no idea what it takes. But I want to awaken that in you and everybody who's listening to this. Those men have activated their patriot gene. There's one in you. If you were born in this country, if you believe in this country, you have one of those. You just need to turn it on and become a patriot and a warrior for this country, because we need you now more than ever. This is a final appeal. We are on the precipice. And I urge you to support these men and women in this small battlefield that I'm in. Go to lettersfromprison.us, buy one of these books and preserve it, because it's either going to be a part of history or one of the most banned documents in America, depending on how 2024 goes.
It makes me sad. It really makes me sad listening to your story and the stories of these people who are sitting in jails that have not been tried, have not had even a day in court. And then, of course, the shaman, he was tried, he was convicted, he was put in jail, and he would be there today were it not for the fact that the Republicans got control of the United States Congress and released some hours of the J6 film. And we saw that the shaman was actually invited into the Capitol, that he was offered a tour of the Capitol, that they opened the door to the United States Senate chamber, and he went to the podium where he led people in prayer.
Yep.
Huh. What a coincidence.
Over and over again in these interviews I do from jail.
A few days later, they come and unlock the key, unlock the cell, and let the shaman out, the face of J6. So how many people do you estimate are still in jail, sitting there without trial?
I have over 230 men and women in prison right now. I have over 1,300 men and women charged. Donald Trump was 1,206. The pogrom continues this week. They arrested another 3 people this week. Now they're going after grandma who was having a picnic on the grass. And their methodology is that they prove their narrative by arresting you, charging you with something, and then offering you a plea deal, a slap on the wrist, a little probation, but you got to plead guilty. You got to confess your sins to Biden. You got to repudiate MAGA and Trump. You got to say everything that we want you to say, and then we'll let you go. But if you say, no, I want my day in court, then those misdemeanors become felonies, and then you're done. They'll bankrupt you, destroy your life, put an ankle bracelet on you, down your business, slander your name, and eventually throw you in jail. And this is something that should never be tolerated by the American public. And so why aren't you on your phone right now?
That is not the America to which I was born. It is not the America that I grew up in. It is not the America that I studied in law school when we studied the Constitution, read the Bill of Rights, and read 2 centuries of case law that validate our freedoms, that validate our Bill of Rights. And it's all being thrown out the window in the blink of an eye.
And this is not the America I will leave for my children and grandchildren. What about you?
I certainly pray and hope not. Absolutely. So what about these 230 people in jail? I would assume they have lawyers. I assume they have public defenders. What about writs of habeas corpus? I mean, we have laws in this country that prevent the very despicable acts you're describing from occurring. You should be able to bring a writ and say, hey, I haven't been charged. Let me go.
First of all, the D.C. court won't allow it. They basically have just dismisses motions like that. But the gentleman I spoke to, the guy that my wife and I have supported for almost 3 years, along with 2 other veterans who are also J6 defendants who are in jail, his name is Jeff McKellop. We are filing the very first habeas corpus, but we're filing it in Texas District Court. Because we cannot find justice in D.C. We cannot find justice in the first district. It's just never going to happen in that circuit court. And so we're attempting for the first time to set a landmark case to file for habeas corpus for a war hero who has been held almost 3 years without trial and tortured during this period. And we will see how that goes. We will see whether this is the same judge who ruled for the SEALs in the COVID case. We will see whether justice still exists outside of D.C., and if not, of course, there's always going to trial. But you ask about attorneys, and let's just put it real simple like this, folks. Retainer, $50,000 for somebody to operate in D.C. Go to trial, I need another $50,000 to $75,000. Lose the case, need to go to appeal, I'm going to need another $50,000 to $75,000. How many of you have $250,000 stuck in your sock drawer? How many of you can afford justice if the government decided they didn't like what you were doing, like what John and I do? How many of you could buy your way to freedom?
So how do people donate if they would like to donate to the defense fund? Where do they go?
There's a bunch of, if you'll go to our main website, which is letter J, number 6, patriotnews.com, j6patriotnews.com. On that front page at the bottom, you will find so many ways to get involved, so many organizations that need your help, so many people who are taking care of these men and women and their families that you can begin being a part of. And you can buy these books from us at lettersfromprison.us. They are their letters to you, America. You're going to see some of them are written, Dear America, Dear American Patriots. They're for you. This is your mail, and I'm trying to deliver it. And if you buy these books, which are not cheap, they're they're beautiful, illustrated coffee table books at lettersfromprison.us. All those proceeds go to a nonprofit that supports these men and women through this horrible pogrom in America.
And I'm thinking that's probably a tax-deductible gift, correct?
It is. We are 501c3.
There you
and
go.
All of our organizations file our P&Ls online on our websites every quarter, so you can see where every penny goes.
Do you have an opinion on Ray Epps? Do you know who he is, what he was? I saw his 60-minute interview. He became a somewhat sympathetic character through the midst of it, based on the trauma that has been brought into his life, which is far from the trauma that has brought into the survivor of Ashley Babbitt's wife. My God, I mean, just that officer shot that woman in cold blood. She was unarmed. She was trying to push people back from breaching the Capitol. And they justify it based on her being a threat to who?
Yeah, to who? An unarmed woman. An unarmed woman.
Let her through the window, and I mean they had goons there tackle her and put her under arrest if you want to, but shooting her dead. It is so heartbreaking to me, and so unfathomable to me that this is occurring in our country.
Yeah. In the beginning, I talked about everybody just seeing the mosaic. Well, we fixed that for you. But between these letters and the interviews at J6 Patriot News and an amazing documentary, actually it's a series of documentaries, but this last one called J6 The Real Timeline, which you can find at stophate.com, stophate.com. It actually takes you through the entire day with parallel views of videos, what's happening at the ellipse while things are going at the Capitol. For the first time, you'll see the whole puzzle. You're going to see Ray Epps start to finish. Everything he does pointed out and illustrated. unfortunately, I'm going to warn you, there's violence in language, and you're going to see the death of Ashley Babbitt in its entirety. And it's very hard to watch, those of us who are part of this community who love Mickey Wyckoff and her husband. And the lawsuit that's going forward.
I hold Nancy Pelosi directly responsible for the death of Ashley Babbitt. She met Trump in the Oval Office 2 days before that J6 horrible day in our nation's history. He offered her the National Guard. They knew that there were going to be protests. Anybody with a rational brain knew it could get out of hand. She refused it. The mayor of Washington refused the offer. The whole thing, to me, appears to be a setup, and costing the life of Ashley Babbitt.
Oh, not her, not just
and
her,
five
but
other
Roseanne
people.
Boylan as well, and Philip Anderson, and there were 4 people died that day, and none of them were police officers. So I'm really wondering whose funeral was Biden attending when he said he went to all the dead police officers' funerals. Only 4 people died that day. They were all protesters, all of them.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. This is a war of good against evil, and each of us have to fight the battle, or else
Amen.
our children and grandchildren will suffer for generations to come if we're not able to turn this around. So tell me, you haven't told me, Ray Epps, who was he working for? Inquiring minds want to know.
I think Ray Epps may have been an infiltrator, but again, this is going to be like the Kennedy assassination, where you're probably not going to see these records for 20 years until everybody who cares is dead. But we have really
assassination has been 65 years, and we now know, if you will read, our own government, the CIA, killed Kennedy. Now, I tell that to my friends, and they look for the exit signs. They start thinking that I've lost it, but I have spent 60 years of my life studying the Kennedy assassination, because I was home from school, as our listeners know, on November the 22nd, 1963. It's been an obsession of mine, and I now know. I didn't think I'd ever learn the true answer, but I now know with certainty that the CIA killed Kennedy. Now, I think you got to hasten to add that it wasn't the CIA. It was people. It was bad people within the CIA who had the power and the keys to the vault that were able to pull this off and then cover it up. To me, I think 2020. I called Donald Trump JFK 2.0.
Yeah, it's the same thing. You have bad actors within the government, within these 3-letter agencies who have been corrupted by power and the desire to be sycophants to power. And sometimes I'm like you. I wonder whether there's things hanging over these guys' heads. One of the things that comes out of testimonies of Skull and Bones and all these private highfalutin elitist organizations, that you have to do something really compromising in front of everybody, so that you become indentured to the group, and everybody then has something on everybody, and no one can turn on anyone. I just often wonder, what kind of weird cabal do congressional members go to in the dark of night at Saturday? But at the same time, I have faith that Americans own this country, not Congress. Americans own this country, not Joe Biden. We own this country, and the responsibility to keep it free, to keep it the bastion of freedom, and to make sure that evil doesn't overtake it. And if we sit and watch it, if we say nothing, I tell you, silence is complicit.
Have you had any blowback from your activism and the work that you've done?
Well, I've been an activist all my life. I mean, I would say yes, over a lifetime of activism. Yeah, I can't really fly that much anymore without, getting patted down on a regular basis. And we just choose not to participate in things that we think we could be denied. But I have no doubt that our conversations right now are being listened to, or that the emails and the postings that I do and the calls that I make to prisoners every day are not monitored closely and recorded in some little black book in some 3-letter agency's dungeon somewhere. But I'm not afraid of that, because I'm an American. And I just can't put it any stronger than this. We all die, ladies and gentlemen. Whether you believe where you go afterwards is something that you have total faith in or not, we all die. My question for you is, how do you live? How do you live? Again, children, grandchildren, future. We have to look at those things. And if it requires sacrifice, even unto our own lives, I'm not advocating violence, But if you did not see what happened to an individual who just made a comment on the internet about Biden and got raided by a SWAT team and then murdered in his own home, the guy was using a walker, for God's sakes. How much of a threat was he to the American public? If you don't recognize those and you are not willing to be the American spirit, to find the patriot gene, to find the strength and the courage of our founders, then we are truly done as a country, as a republic, as a bastion of freedom. And so that's what I give you to do. Is this my final words to you? You must awaken the patriot gene. You must realize what's at stake. You must look at your children and sacrifice everything for their future, because nothing is worth more.
Well, like all guests, I always have the thought that runs through my head before Saturday at noon, whether we're going to run out of stuff to talk about and whether I'll have a good, thought-provoking, inspirational guest on, which is always my goal. Thank you for living up to all of my expectations. Tim Rivers, the founder of J6 Patriot News and the American Gulag Chronicles. You've been a wonderful guest. Thank you for coming on. This is The Truth. I'm John Gordon, and I'm telling you the truth. And we're all sitting back here waiting on the world to change. We better get off the sofa and start helping change the world. We'll see you next Saturday at high noon right here on The Truth.